was struck by the fact that there are currently 175 phones in New York that lawmakers are trying to unlock. The DA trying to unlock, and Cyrus Vance now saying that his office has these iPhones that he believes can, if he gets into these iPhones, they can help them with some important drug cases, criminal cases. Is that right?
Sure. I think this ultimately has to be solved by Congress. I'm not certain they want to take it on, but it's an issue that requires a law. I think this particular case will go to the Supreme Court because Tim Cook really has no alternative now. He's drawn a line in the sand, so he's got to show his consumer base that he's fighting for them. I'm surprised that it wasn't handled in private. And it really is, at least as far as I can see, this case is about one phone, because Apple will control the whole process. I think what the FBI is looking for is the phone to be taken and sort of turned over to them without this capacity to turn off after 10 tries. So. Right. That is totally within the bailiwick of Apple. I don't see why it raises the potential for it to be hacked.
All right, let me read you something, though, that Tim Cook is saying, okay, because this really struck me. Because Tim Cook is saying if the government can use the All Rights Act to make it easier to unlock your iPhone, it would have the power to reach into anyone's device to capture their data. The government could extend this breach of privacy and demand that Apple build surveillance software to intercept your messages, access your health records or financial data, track your location, even access your phone's microphone or camera without your knowledge.
No, you need a judicial decree. That's what the Fourth Amendment is all about. It's against unreasonable searches, absent a warrant that's based on oath and affirmation. That's the system of government that we have here. It goes back hundreds of years. So just willy-nilly do these sorts of things? No, that's just not going to happen. It doesn't happen.
Are you heartened, though, by the fact that Tim Cook he's trying to frighten Americans into his corner, in part with this. But right now, it seems like, at least on that Pew survey, they're siding with the FBI and the right, to basically investigate a terrorist attack.
Yeah,
because it's national security.
I think that's
where the public is coming down. As a member of law enforcement, does that make you feel better?
Yeah, everybody wants privacy, but the public is also concerned about its safety. And now they're moving to the side of security. I mean, this was a horrendous attack. 14 people were killed. It's reasonable to think that there's important information in that phone. The whole thing sounds very reasonable in my mind as far as government trying to get this information. I think Tim Cook drew the line in the sand probably in the wrong place with the 5C phones, because this technology is improving. The 6, the 6S. Apparently, they say it's impossible to get into those new phones.
It's essentially with these newer smartphones that no member of law enforcement or no lawyer could ever, even with a valid search warrant, search these phones. So this is going to have to be something to Congress.
But it's important to note that this is what Apple is advertising.
Right.
They said this in their advertisements, that it's not, you can't reach it through a warrant, which is something for us to all think about, because this is not the government. This is Apple saying that you can't reach this information.
Well, I think this is a really important point. You know why? Because I was looking at this. This is why we need free market so much, because I couldn't believe that Apple and Google, Android, control 90% of mobile communications. I mean, this should not be up to Apple.
Right. Yeah. They're the ones that are making this determination. That's why Congress has got to get involved. But it's a little like gun control. I think it's seen as the third rail.
Right.
Maybe if the polls come out and the public moves perhaps more towards the government side, then you may see some legislation coming from Congress.
That's Dagan's point, Commissioners. You've got two main fears. You've got your privacy fear, and what's trumping that, sorry to use the term, is the fear of panic associated with a terrorist event. Yeah. And that's proving to be a bigger fear going along with what Dagan suggested.
You know, Commissioner, the difference between intelligence and law enforcement, and you kind of alluded to that earlier, but expand on that, because we have an intelligence aspect to this, which is we want to find out what the terrorists are communicating with and how they do it. That's intelligence, but there's the law enforcement and the Fourth Amendment protections. That's a difficult balance.
Yeah, and law enforcement, of course, is doing all of their activities pursuant to the Constitution. Certainly restrictions abound in that area. But as far as intelligence is concerned, it's a little less restrictive. They have more options to get information than law enforcement does.
Should they have done this in private then? I mean, if this was done in private, it could have been dealt with as an intelligence
why
operation.
Didn't they do it? I don't know why they didn't do it in private. Apparently, they've done it in private for 70
because
other
it's
phones.
I go back to my first instinct on this story. Tim Cook has to make a big deal about this. Otherwise, China, Russia, all these other countries who use iPhones, they're going to think that Apple is in the pocket of the U.S. government.
Yeah, I mean, these other countries could do that now. They could demand Apple to do it as well.
But this is partly PR, right? They want its customers, including the international customers, to know we're protecting your data.
Yeah, and there's demonstrations right now, people in front of Apple supporting Apple. So I think the customer, I love my iPhone, by the way. I think it's a phenomenal instrument. But yeah, I think it's good for business on a part of Apple.
Commissioner, I got to ask you your take on the Obama budget. I mean, this is unbelievable that the Obama administration moved in its budget to cut nearly $300 million from the Urban Area Security Initiative when Schumer objected to the Iran deal. What is your take on this cut to New York security?
Yeah. Well, I think Chuck Schumer's been a stalwart as far as getting resources for New York City. Don't forget, this city has had 2 major attacks, 2,700 people killed here. On the Bloomberg watch, we had 16 plots. There have been more plots against the city since then. This is still the #1 target, no question about it. The city needs those resources, and this was such a dramatic cut. A lot of people think that it was done just to sort of stick a knife in Chuck Schumer because of his opposition to the Iranian plan. It may very well be.
To play politics with something so important.
With security.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's Washington. That's what happens all the time there. But this city is still the #1 target, still needs other resources.
So, I mean, just because Schumer said he was against the Iran deal?
Well, who knows what the inner workings are there, but he
wanted to get New York back.
But it was interesting, the vehemence with which he was attacked by Josh Ernst, the
media
the White House spokesperson. Looked like they were prepared for this. Looked like they did it maybe to goad him into it, because it was a very, very direct attack. You don't see that. Schumer's a pretty important person in the Democratic Party.
So in other words, they knew that this was coming. They knew people were going to say, hey, look, you cut money going to New York security because you don't like the fact that Schumer went against your Iran deal.
It's certainly possible. I mean, we don't know with precision, but it looks like that.
Commissioner, good to see you.
Good to see you.
Thank you so much for joining us. Former New York Police Department Commissioner Ray Kelly, author of the new book, Vigilance. Check it out. Great read there from Ray Kelly. Don't forget, Mornings with